I've never met a guy who says, "Hey, bro, do you know where the vasectomy truck is?"
Hey, you think it's over there on Thursday? I try by on Thursday every week, and it's gone. I don't know.
No, man. Thursdays are on Union and C Street. You know what I'm saying? Union and C on Thursdays. But don't worry, dog. They got you. Just go on in.
You got to get there before noon. The line is down the street, so you got to get there before noon.
Yo, dog, why you in line? Well, I'm in line because dude's in line. Yo, man, why you in line? Bro, you don't know why we in line. We like that. They don't even tell you what to do. Like that, bro. That's all they're doing.
They got the best vasectomy.
Bro, I'm telling you, bro. In and out, bro. In and out 10 minutes. Give you a little pill, little shot, you gone. Hey, welcome to the Not a Fitted Podcast. It's your boy, Anthony, the Conservative Chicano. Sit with my guys here. In full disclosure, right before we came on air, we were looking up crumble cookies. We were trying to figure out which ones we wanted to eat, buy. We talked about the lemon glaze. We thought it might be a little too sweet. We saw a waffle cookie. What'd you think of the waffle cookie? You thought it was worth the sample, right?
Nah, it's not worth it. I need to lose some weight, so we're
going
to stay away from crumble.
What is a waffle? What does that mean?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Tastes like a waffle?
And it's probably got some like sweet cream butter on top
so
or
got
something.
some buttercream on it. It looks like a waffle. I don't know.
Sounds kind of good though.
Maybe.
Do you guys have a favorite kind of cookie? Favorite like flavor of cookie?
Look at the size of me. I like all cookies.
I like the cookies.
Yeah, I try them all, but I haven't had a crumble cookie probably maybe 3-4 months, 5 months, somewhere around. When was the last time you had a crumble cookie?
It's been a long time.
Would you like a crumble cookie?
No, I'm okay.
But if there was like a sample of like 24 different ones, would you eat
it?
Yeah,
I'll sample it. Yeah.
You know what's wrong? You know what's I'm telling you right now, you can't just have just one. And I was really hoping everybody would eat them all. Gone yesterday was those Snicker ice cream bars. Those are built different.
And they're always so small. It feels like it's only like 2 or 3
it's not that they're
bites.
small. It's just you eat them fast.
But I'll say this about cookies. Okay, shout out to Vanessa. I don't even know if she watches. Vanessa's cookies are better than crumble cookies.
Facts. Have you had Vanessa's cookies? You know what? That's a fact. Every cookie I've had from her has been fire. So, okay, that's what we were talking about before we got on there. But you guys know, you're my boys right here. I got the token and the bishop in the house. And shout out to Josh from Lodi. If you don't know where Lodi is, Google Creedence Clearwater Revival, and they'll tell you how they were stuck in Lodi. Do you even know? That's a white band. Do you know Creedence Clearwater Revival?
Why are you asking me and not asking him?
Because you're the white guy. So I just thought I would ask you.
Clarence is what? What did you say?
It's
Creedence.
So you never heard Stuck in Lodi? Yeah. Have you heard of Creedence Clearwater Revival? CCR?
I've seen the title, seen the name.
Okay, so I should have asked him. That's what I get for stereotyping, right?
That's what you get for stereotyping.
That's what I get for stereotyping. All right, see, I was wrong. I can admit it. I was wrong. But no, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Not a Fitted Podcast. That was a little bit of us just joking around before we got on air, so I thought we would talk about it. This is where we talk about culture's influence on the church. Real quickly, shout out to my boy Joshua and Lodi. Him and his wife be watching all the time. I was in Lodi for a wedding, and I went to the gym. And he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, you're Anthony, right? And from Not Offended and from the church." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I thought it was you." And he was texting his pastor, and he goes, "Hey, I think Anthony's at the gym with me right now at 6 a.m. He's like, "Nah, you need to take a picture. I don't believe it." And he walked up to me and he was like, "It's you, right?" And I'm like, "It's me." So my cousin, shout out to my cousin Albert. He watches sometimes. He got married up in Valley Springs. You guys would know that best, where I think Sons of Anarchy was taped around there. So y'all would know that if you saw that show. But I was up there. We did the wedding. Never seen Sons of Anarchy?
Never seen it.
So
he thought it sounds like a white show.
It is a white show, and I expected you to have at least seen an episode, Mike. You've let me down. You're 2 for 2 on the letdowns.
I'm 2 for 2.
2 for 2 on the letdowns.
I'm losing my white card.
You are losing your white card fast, and so. And we need you to have it.
Let me say something racist real quick in order to get it back.
No, we need you to have it so when we get pulled over, you can do all of our talking.
I'll still drive.
Okay, good. We appreciate that. So I was there, and so I got to talking to him, and he's like, "Hey, we tune in every week. We really appreciate all the things you guys talk about." And so I want to encourage you guys again. Please shout us out where you're watching us from, and then when you type it in, we're gonna let everybody know who's watching us from where. But we appreciate everybody. I did have a moment of clarity. I don't know what's going on, but one of the ladies who watches us on the podcast from Alabama. She reached out and she said she couldn't find some of our older episodes. And so I went back and I looked and I was like, yeah, I couldn't find it either. So I got to do a little bit of digging around. So all of you who go back and you go back to watch other episodes, let us know if you're able to find stuff or not able to find stuff. We'd love to assist you any way we can.
It could be on our other page.
It could be on our church page?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, that's right, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot. We used to upload on the church page. If you're looking for older podcasts, you'd have to go to the adventure page. We used to upload on that page.
There's a playlist on there.
Is there a playlist? Okay, so maybe that'll help you if you're doing that. But please let us know where you're right in front. And then leave a comment. We would love to. You can leave a comment on Instagram. By the way, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify. You can find us on iTunes, or you can find us on Instagram. We post a lot of our clips to Instagram. I saw a lot of you started coming to follow us over there. That'd be great. And you can leave a comment there. So speaking of comments, the Brittany Griner one did well again. I don't know why, but people were commenting about, yes, you can tell she's had a heart change when it comes to America. And then we got this guy. Mike's got the comment. I want you to read this comment. And who's this from again?
Comment is from Adam_TH33, so maybe Adam3. Appreciate you commenting. It says, literally, the only thing America does better than the rest of the world is sports. Y'all think we're the best, then why kids getting murdered in schools?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Deshaun, do you want to help Adam3333 or Adam3 out here, right here? He goes, y'all think you're the best, but the only thing you're good at is sports.
That's why are kids getting murdered in schools?
I have no idea with what sports and kids getting murdered. But go ahead.
Do you know kids get murdered in other countries?
I apparently not. No. We're the only country where kids get. Did you know that? We're the only country.
Facts, I guess. Facts.
I thought the whole killing fields in Pol Pot and all that, did I get that wrong? The Holocaust where they killed kids? No, they didn't do that.
Well, I mean, I guess it would explain why people are fleeing America to go live in other countries.
I know so many people moved to Cambodia. I'm unaware. Did you know that? I mean, just by the droves. They're taking boats over. They're climbing their wall. I mean, they're doing all sorts of stuff.
We need to build a wall to keep people in.
Oh, we need to build a wall.
They're leaving too fast.
Wow, I've never thought about that. You know, hashtag build a wall, keep people in. That's what Adam, you know what? You ready? Adam, you're right. The only thing we're good at is sports. You know what's crazy, though, is I noticed that a lot of people around the world copy our culture. Like, before we got on air, we were just talking about, what's his name? He's an East Indian rapper.
Moosewalla.
No, not Moosewalla, the other one, your guy.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay, we have to look him up. But he had 60 million views on YouTube, and all of his beats sounded Western. His rap style sounded Western. His actual tone sounded Western. But don't worry, they're not trying to copy us in India. That was just complete anomaly.
Well, he's in India speaking English.
And he's in India speaking English, but we're only good at sports. And then
that's probably because of the colonization.
Oh, because of the white man.
Yes. There
so
we go.
Because of you colonized him.
Here, let me get my white card back. I am sorry.
So once again, it's your fault.
Yes.
And so because of this,
on behalf of every person who's ever been white before,
you seem so apologetic. Yeah. Okay, so then you showed us, what was his name?
Moosewalla.
And once again, I'm watching this and it looks like an American rap video. And so it's like, I don't understand where people help me to understand Adam 3 here. I don't understand where he's coming from. And then he says the kids are getting murdered in school. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I don't think that's an everyday occurrence. And I still think that childhood obesity will end up killing more kids than any guns, but we're also not fixing the dietary issue. Am I wrong in that?
America's not perfect. Kids getting shot in school is a bad thing. A really bad thing. We all agree on that.
We do.
But people fixate on one thing, and now the whole country's garbage. It's like, what are you talking about? We can go to any country and pick out anything and say how bad they are. Every country is going to have their good things and going to have their bad things. And but people here in America, I'm assuming he's here in America, and he's been brainwashed into thinking, hey, this place is such a bad thing because I'm putting up this one thing that kids get shot. There's a few times kids got shot in school.
And so I responded because I'm a nice guy. So I responded, Canada is taking people. If you'd like to go to Canada, better yet, Venezuela will let you in. Or better yet, how about you just go to Iran? I'm sure they are welcoming and affirming and just loving. Go ahead and go to Iran and tell me how it works for you. I mean, was that not nice
well,
of
a
me?
lot of those countries, children don't get killed at schools because they can't afford to go to school.
Oh, wow.
So it's hard to get killed at a place you can't afford to go to.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, we're doing Adam. We're doing Adam a solid today.
So yeah, one of the things that you learn early on in statistics class is that you can, formulate and mess with numbers to make them say whatever you want them to say. And so if there are no opportunities for somebody to get killed in another country because they can't afford to go to school, chances are our numbers will be higher in that category.
This leads to I think why politics is so divisive, right? I saw a post, I think it was yesterday. It said, do not allow politics to divide you from the people who you know when there's not a single politician that you do know. So don't allow this to happen. I think it's so dividing because people aren't willing to sit down and have conversations. Like the gun statistic, right? If we really wanted to be honest and forthright and transparent about real conversations, let me ask you a question. Let's just go, how old's your youngest? He's 8? 7. Okay, so let's just go from 2015. Well, I'll just give us an easy number. So from 2015, all the kids that were born from 2015, and we'll just go to 2025. We'll just give it a few months in advance here. So in that 10-year block, okay? The majority of those kids that are born, what's going to end up killing those kids as current trend is going right now? Is it going to be guns or is it going to be poor diet?
Out of those two options, diet.
Okay, I'll let you throw in any third option third option: drunk driving, drugs, suicide. I'll give you 3 more options you could throw in. What do you think is going to be the number one killer of people in that generation for 2015 to 2020? That 10 years, what do you think is going to be the number one killer for them? You want to take a guess?
I don't know.
What's the number one killer now?
Heart disease?
Heart disease.
You're saying for that age group? Mm-hmm. During that time?
No.
Oh,
As
okay.
they get older.
As they get older.
As they get older. What's going to take more? Gun violence isn't going to take them out. It's been, listen, and the whistle's being blown on this whole COVID thing. I'm telling you right now, the whistle's being blown. This is really coming out. COVID was never the number one killer. People got hoodwinked. I'm not saying people didn't get sick. People got hoodwinked in knowing and thinking that COVID was the number one killer. Because just what happened last year in 2023, guess what went right back to number one after a 2-year hiatus? Heart disease. Poor diet. Inflammation. All COVID did was already inflame a lifestyle that you'd already had a habit of. So all it did was take out people with comorbidities. It took out people who had 1 to 3 comorbidities. All it did was speed up the timeline. What was going to eventually take you out, and that's what people don't want to talk about. Is the number one problem we still have is our dietary issue right now. We are eating food that is highly processed. We're eating food that is highly chemical. We're eating all these foods, and no wonder our bodies are all inflamed. If you look at the countries around the world, I don't know that anybody, especially in California, I think it's down to 1 out of every 26 or 30 kids are diagnosed with autism. Where if you go back 30 years ago, that statistic was non-existent for the most part. It wasn't that autism was around, it was just so few and far between. If you look at, did you know right now in California, I think they just come out, I think it's either 68 or 70% of all kids by American standard, by health standard, Health American standard, not what we did, but what the doctors and the dietitians have prescribed. Almost 70% of all kids are overweight, and they said like 30+% are grossly obese. And this guy wants to talk about gun violence. Not to mention all the things that are on the skyrise, diabetes. It has now come out. It's no longer going to be 1 in 3 of people of color with diabetes. It's going to be 1 in 2. They said 40 is the new benchmark. By 40, if you don't have things under control, you are guaranteed. So this is what I'm saying. What we do is we pick and choose what we want to talk about, right? But we never really get to the real issues. We never really get to the real things. And so I've come to the conclusion that if this body's the temple of the Holy Spirit, I got to take care of it. And so I don't think, I think Adam, I think he's just been, I think we're regurgitating what people want us to regurgitate. We're saying the talking points that they want us to say as talking points. And I think that's the biggest problem. If you really want to fix, watch this. If you really want to fix what's going on here, we have to start with us holistically as a person. You couldn't believe how many people are on psychotropics, statins. Do you guys know what that is? Psychotropics are drugs to help you with your mental health. Statins are those that like lower your blood pressure, cholesterol, all these things. So many people are on insulin or those two other things that it's actually it's what's bankrupting America. Go home, watch TV. 1 out of every 3 ads is what? Pharma. Pharma. I'll help you with something. 10 years ago, could you go more than 2 sets of commercials without a Viagra commercial? And I don't mean just Viagra, but Cialis Viagra, all of them. Could you go more than 2 to 3 sets of commercials without seeing that commercial? You remember? Especially during sports.
Oh yeah, they push it hard. Yeah.
Why?
Wow.
Why though? Why? Think about that. Because there's money to be made. They're expecting people. They're expecting people to watch. They're expecting people to log on. That's what they're targeting. If I'm not mistaken, when I was in Mexico, I didn't see no ads for pharma. When I was watching the news, I didn't see no ads. Matter of fact, I think we're the only place. If you
I saw something about that. They said that the U.S. and one other country are the only countries in the world that allow pharma commercials.
Well, here's what's crazy. Have you ever asked yourself why could you get a prescription drug in Mexico cheaper than you can get it here?
Because it's laced with fentanyl.
No.
No, I'm just joking.
No, because why? Because they don't have that markup. There's all this markup. And so all I'm saying is if we're going to really talk, not talking points, but we're really going to talk about what's killing kids, it has to start. Like, what are the school lunches full of?
Sodium. It's
okay. And so you took out sodas and you put in what? Powerade? Okay. So you just exchange money. This is what I'm saying. I'm tired of the talking points. I'm tired of the things they want us to regurgitate. We need to talk about the things that are serious. So I got one for you. We were talking and I kind of felt, I'm going to talk about yesterday's sermon. This segues right to it. Talking points, right? And I feel like we went through a good 10 years, and I got caught up in this. I'll be the first one to admit it, of where we didn't really want to preach anything controversial. We didn't really want to rock the boat too much. We were big on success and outcomes and attendance and flash and bling and shine and all this stuff. And really, I did this sermon yesterday because I felt like we need to be more balanced. 3 boats, 3 storms, 3 outcomes. And in that last point, I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this. On this last point, I talked about Paul. And what did I say? It was Acts 21? No, Acts 27. And I talked about Paul, and he was on the boat, right, heading towards Rome. And I mentioned that, I talked about before, God gave Noah a peace, but the storm was still raging. Then with the disciples, right, he calmed the storms and the seas and then kind of rebuked his disciples, but yet he calmed the storm. So one calms the person, one calms the storm. And then I gets to Paul, and he didn't get anything. His hope of encouragement was, hey, Paul, you're going to get to dry land, but your ship's going to blow up, be destroyed to pieces. And by the way, just find a plank of wood, and that's how I'll get you to land. After, as if that's any, reassurance of, well, that's great, right? I said all that because I want everybody to know God didn't rebuke the storm. And in the same breath, he really didn't give the peace as we would seem peace, the assurance that everything was going to be okay. He actually told Paul, hold on, it's going to get a lot worse. And by the way I'm going to get you there is not a piece as an inside, but a piece of wood as in something to grab a hold of. And so I was really correlating that to, as Christians, you're not going to be able to avoid life's curveballs. You're not going to be able to avoid life's storms. You're going to have to go through some things, and some of these things are really going to hurt. And they're really going to, if I could say, bruise you in such a way. And by the way, there are going to be some people who love Jesus, that die of cancer, that die of these things. And if you're not careful, you're going to think you or somebody else did something wrong. So I was really trying to get people to grow up and say, listen, in their faith that is, and say, listen, this isn't always going to work out the way you think it's going to work out. And so that was my whole goal of the 3 boats, 3 storms, 3 outcomes. But I just want to get your guys' take on that. What did you guys think about when I was talking about that? Paul didn't get necessarily what the other 2 got, but what he did get was an assurance. You're going to live, but you're going to have to go through some painful things and some scary moments, but you're going to live. I don't know. What was your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was. My wife was telling me today because we sort of preached the same sermon, and my wife was telling me basically I didn't do a good job explaining this last point. And
your wife said you didn't do a good job explaining. Yeah,
basically, and because basically I was telling this like some stuff that I had went through, and I was like, man, asking God to help me, and I kept telling people, hey, God will, He'll come through, and I felt like in that moment God didn't come through in that way that I wanted. It didn't look like there wasn't, this calming of the storm. There wasn't no miracle that you get to see. You just went through it. It was like, God, where are you at? And sometimes life's just going to be hard. And you have to trust that God is still with you and He loves you and He cares for you. But you're just going to go through it. But still having some reality that, no, God's going to see me through. Like there's certain things that you don't see that God's doing. And sometimes you're just going to have to trust Him. And I had learned through that experience that one day I'm going to end up dying. And then maybe that's the step God wanted me to go through. To understand like, hey, this life isn't for everyone on this earth. And I need you to see this, that it's going to be a time where, hey, you're going to die in your sickness.
Are we afraid to die, or are we just concerned with how we die, or both?
I think you're probably at some point afraid, and hopefully you can get to a place, I guess, where you're not afraid and you're really trusting God. Like, hey, I'm going to go be with Him. You see that with a lot of different people where you see them like, man, they got a peace right now. Like, they know like the end is coming and they got a peace. And you're like, man, they really believe this. Like, there's a faith that's been built up here, and you can see it in them. And I think God wants us all to be there at the end, and people to see that and be encouraged by that.
What do you think? Are people afraid to die, or how they die? Or is it both?
I think it's both, and I think that the more that you are maybe inexperienced with death experience with death could kind of like sway you either way. I think the more that I see death, because I see it a lot, as a pastor, I think the more that I see it, I start to see it differently.
But why do people have such a hard time with the way you die?
It could be scary. I mean, depending on like if you're over here wondering like how I'm gonna die, you see that airplane that fell out of the sky in Brazil, or you know what I mean? Like you start thinking like, man, what's gonna happen with me?
Yeah, no one wants to suffer.
Okay, so that's what it is.
Yeah, I tell people maybe I'm wrong. That's okay. Like, hey, I'm not looking to suffer. I'm looking for the easy route. But if God wants me to go the hard route, I'll go there. But I ain't choosing it just to choose it.
Okay, so I think we just hit it then. So I think the issue then is the suffering. We don't like to see people we love suffer, and we ourselves don't want to suffer. But the thing that amazes me about this story is he literally told Paul on the ship, you're going to have to suffer through this. Like, think about that. His encouragement was, Paul, don't worry. The ship is going to fall apart, and the storm's going to be unrelenting. But when the moment comes, you're going to have a piece of wood, and that's how I'm going to get you on into dry land. I mean, out of all the things I could pick different, I'd pick a lot of things different, right? So what's my point? There's going to be certain things you have to suffer. And I don't think anybody's wanting that or praying for. I've never prayed the prayer of suffering. But I think it's all a part of God's plan is what I'm saying. Suffering is a part of God's plan. And I think we have to have a paradigm shift there, right? We have to have a paradigm shift there that, hey, I'm not saying you got to welcome it and you got to enjoy it, but we do got to expect it is what I'm saying.
Well, if it's coming from God because you're being obedient to God, then that's when you can accept it. No one is going to produce something in you. No one is going to do something in your life. I mean, unfortunately for Paul, at the very beginning, he tells Ananias, go tell him he must suffer for the gospel. Like that was his welcome message into the, like, you're going to suffer a lot for this gospel.
Could you imagine if we did that on the First Step of Growth Track? Hey, we want to welcome everybody here to Adventure Church at First Step of Growth Track. And I just want you to know God's got suffering in mind for you. How well is that going to play out? That's not going to go over. But that was Paul's welcome home message.
Paul gets beat to death. They sneak him out of the city, almost to death. Sneak him out the city. He comes back. Hey, look, guys, you're going to suffer for this. And it's like, I got to go through that. Like, I don't want to go through that. Right. But in the early church, they all knew that, and they all received the gospel message with the idea of knowing that you're going to suffer.
Right. So what is it, Mike, that about suffering that really I don't want to say rubs us the wrong way, but really scares us. I think it scares us more than anything else.
I think there's the unknown. There's also the I wonder when this is going to end. You don't know. I think sometimes it's just it could be a paradigm shift that we have to make. Sometimes the suffering, when you look back on it, the suffering was partial suffering and then also partial preparation for what God had more for you down the road. I mean, and so if you're only looking at it as there's nothing beneficial that's coming from this, then it becomes very depressing. And when you speak with people who are suffering physically in the body every single day, it's just taxing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I there's a friend of mine who comes to the church, and I see him, and every time I see him, he's just barely getting here. Yeah, he's just barely getting. And so that's his day in, day out life. It's going to get up to go to the grocery store, or going to get up to go to the kitchen and make himself to eat. He's always in pain. Mm-hmm. And so I think that when you talk about somebody who's in physical pain, it's just it takes a toll.
Yeah. Anything else about yesterday's message? I mean, you guys had an opportunity to teach on it too. Anything in yesterday's message stand out to you guys, or that you wanted to highlight?
I think it's encouraging.
Which part?
But I just think it's encouraging when we start to think nothing catches God off guard.
That's true.
And so in the midst of our suffering, there's hope. Mm. And so that's why I said I think it's encouraging, because there was always a plan throughout every 3 stories that were shown. God shuts the door on Noah, but there was a plan, right? Their storm happens to the disciples, but there was still a plan. And then finally with Paul, throughout Paul's tumultuous journeys, there was always a plan.
Right.
And so having come from a lifestyle of not following Christ, where it felt like often there was never a plan, and I was always kind of doing it on my own and winging it and trying to find a way out of whatever I was in. And it felt like a heavy load, I'm always doing it. But when you're walking with the Lord, you go through suffering, but you know that there's hope because he's always there with you, and there is going to be something on the other end of it.
Gotcha. What about you?
Yeah, when we had read the story of Noah, I had included the first verse, and then God tells Noah, "I found you righteous amidst this wicked generation." I just found that interesting because we're on the other side of the cross. We have this benefit that our righteousness is not found in ourselves,
right?
But it's found in Jesus,
right?
So if you're willing to receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior, God can see you and see you as righteous. It means any generation. It means in this world right now. He's going to see you, and you'll always have his protection. It's not anything. It's nothing based upon you. And that could be a place of comfort of man, if I just be obedient to God and willing to receive what he has for me and walk in obedience, I'm always going to find myself in a place of protection, and I'm always going to have hope. And then Romans tells us that if you have hope in Christ, you'll never be put to shame. You never look like an idiot when you put your hope in Christ.
Yeah, and that leads me to I love that. That leads me to this thought too. My heart does go out for people who suffer, haven't had a chronic pain for a while, and I only had it for a few years. I could see how 10, 15 years of that. I think this is also, hear me out. I think this was a guarantee though that we were going to have some type of physical suffering because of the fall. He said, by the sweat of your brow, Adam, you're going to work this land amongst thorns and thistles. So in other words, there was going to be this brokenness to our bodies because of the origin of sin. That this was going to happen. Now, certain people are able to, stave that off and do a little bit better physically. But sooner or later, the physical body just breaks down. I mean, we're all older now. We were talking about, somebody came up to me and they were talking about you racing your son and how you said, man, you barely got him, but you got to start running again, or he going to beat you. Mm. And somebody came up to me at men's night. They say, yo, pastor, you racing your son? I'm like, nah, I think he can beat me. we got there yet. I just out muscle him right now. Like we ain't running. And I tell you that, but it's funny, it's tongue in cheek, but I tell you that because yesterday he went on a run. And he's like, yeah, I just went for a couple mile run. I'm like, hey, what'd you get that first mile in? He was like, 6 minutes, 30 seconds. I was like, it's not bad. I just went on a 3-mile run the other day. I was like 10, 11 minutes. I didn't tell him that though. I told him not bad. Like, it's bad when you have to go, hey, but when I was your age.
There's still a benchmark that you haven't hit.
There's still a benchmark you got to get. But the point is like this is going to break down. This is going to break down, and it is the issue. You guys leave it in the comment box. I think the issue is suffering. It's not that we're afraid to die. We are concerned about how we die and what's the suffering in between. And I just want to encourage you. I take hope from God's word, and where he told Paul, hey, my grace is sufficient. In other words, I've got grace for you even in the suffering, and I'm going to take care of you. And I just want to throw out, not to be super spiritual. I don't want to be that guy, but I do want to say this. According to Hebrews, when we get there, our suffering won't even be a thought because of the glory that we see of Jesus, right? So I just want to put in perspective as well, is when you get there, you'll see that it wasn't in vain, that it was all a part of God's plan. And you know what? You don't even think about it now. And so I just want to throw that out there, which brings me to another point. And I think we haven't had this argument, but we've had people argue with us, okay? And I think Sean had this argument too when he came on the podcast a few months ago, talking about America being a Christian nation. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, people will bring that up. Well, and we always try to gently remind people, like, no, it was found on some Judeo-Christian beliefs. The whole system, the whole structure, the whole judges, the Constitution. Every person is endowed with certain inalienable rights from their Creator. Where do you think you got all that? You got that from the Bible. Even to the point where we get Saturdays and Sundays off. We call that the weekend. One is Shabbat, right? Or Shabbats. One is the Sabbath. And then, of course, the Christian Sabbath on Sundays. And anyway, I thought it was good. I came across a clip. I think I sent it to you or you sent it to me, but we found it, I think at the same time, literally, of Charlie Kirk, who I believe to be a born-again person. I don't think he's a pastor, but I think he's a born-again believer who's infiltrating the political ranks and trying to get America back to God. Long story short, the person asked this question about this again was, is this a Christian nation? In my opinion, and this is well worth the watch. I think it's 3 minutes long. I think he's done the best job I've ever heard in under 3 minutes. If I could just say that. I thought it was really clear and concise. And so what I want to do is I want to play that for you guys right now, and then I want to get you guys' thoughts on this case. So watch this.
Our country was founded on common law because the Declaration only refers to God 4 times in the Constitution. It doesn't refer to God at all. And it only articulates the structure of government.
So first of all, remember that we were a collection of states and colonies, and you need to read the state constitutions before anything else. 13 out of 13 required a declaration of faith. 9 out of 13 required you to be a Protestant, except Maryland, which was Catholic, which still required a declaration of faith. Every single one of the original state constitutions, Pennsylvania included, they had, I profess Lord and Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior in the original state constitutions. Secondly, 55 out of 56 of the original signers of the Declaration were Bible-believing, church-attending Christians. You asked about common law. So common law is inherited from Blackstone, who was Christian. A common law is an outgrowth of the scriptures. So let's go to 3 principles of common law: presumption of innocence, due process, and jury of your peers. All 3 are biblical principles. So, and all wrapped into the ultimate biblical principle that you shall not favor justice if you are rich or poor, which is in Leviticus 19, right before the most famous part of Leviticus 19, which is that you should love your neighbor as yourself. But before that is that in the administration of justice, you shall not favor the rich or the poor, which is the idea of blind justice. We get that in the West, which is incorporated also in the New Testament ideal. Neither slave nor Greek nor Jew, you're all one in Jesus Christ, which we get the idea of human equality. These are all biblical ideas. They're not Enlightenment ideas. But more importantly than that, they say that God was only mentioned 4 times in the Declaration of Independence. Well, that's a big deal, okay? Laws of nature and nature's God. The last paragraph of the Declaration reads as a prayer. It says, we appeal to the supreme judge of the universe. Who's the judge of the universe? Jesus Christ. It says in Revelation that Jesus will judge the earth on his throne. So in the Declaration, they were praying to Christ our Lord as a prayer very specifically. Thirdly, as I said on stage yesterday, Deuteronomy was by far the most quoted book, religious or non-religious, in the time of the founding when they were putting together the Constitution, more than John Locke, more than Montesquieu, more than Blackstone. So the book of Deuteronomy, which talked about laws, customs, traditions. It was Moses' farewell address as he's about to say goodbye, say, hey, good luck in Canaan, guys. Here's how you should set up your form of government. But finally, and most importantly, let's look at actually what the founders said. John Adams famously said the Constitution was only written for a moral and religious people. It was wholly inadequate for the people of any other. The body politic of America was so Christian and was so Protestant that our form and structure of government was built for the people that believed in Christ our Lord. One of the reasons we're living through a constitutional crisis is that we no longer have a Christian nation, but we have a Christian form of government, and they're incompatible. So you cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population.
Man. I'd have to slow that down and probably listen to it like 5 or 6 times on a slow speed. What do you think? I mean, we had talked a little bit about that, but does he just break that off, or does he just break that off? Was that not clear and concise?
Yeah, no, he does a great job.
Have you ever heard it like that before?
No, I never heard an argument like that talking about, the early government and how Christianity had such an influence on it in that way.
I mean, from Leviticus 19, if you can get anything out of Leviticus and you saying Leviticus 19, man, that's just impressive right there for all of those of you who read Leviticus. And then he said Deuteronomy, the most quoted book in the form of, what did you think about I think he said John Adams, that quote that this Constitution only works for a religious group of people who believe in Jesus Christ. What'd you think about that? That kind of got my brain just going.
Yeah, I guess if you just kind of slow it down and think about it in regards to like today's times, right? What we're wanting, like let's even look at just the way policing works.
Okay.
Like if you look at the state of Minnesota and everything that they've gone through, you can have all the laws in place, but if nobody agree, and if people are all on different terms and people don't necessarily think that those laws should exist, you have chaos, you have anarchy.
Which they did during the Black Lives Matter.
Right, and
riots,
to an extent, they still have it today.
Right, correct.
In different parts of the state.
Well, Chirac, that's a whole
and then
other, yeah.
And then in Illinois, you have Chicago. And so when I was thinking about what you were talking about as far as this point right here is it only works if we all agree to some extent to certain fundamentals.
Yes, like all men created equal,
or like
blind justice.
Yeah, because even if we have some like variations, at some point we're going to be able to come back around and meet in the middle. But if we are completely on two different ends of the spectrum, like we're not even going to have, there's no middle ground.
Let me ask you something, just because I love this dialogue, because it's getting my brain really going. So is this why some of the immigrants, and I'm not talking about the illegal aliens who get over here illegally, I'm talking about immigrants themselves. Is this why some of them find it easier to assimilate and some of them find it hard to assimilate? The ones who find it easier realize America comes with a certain set of values and freedoms. And one of those values and freedoms is I get to practice my religion. So with that in mind, I don't have to force my religion on anybody else. I'm just allowed to practice it. Whereas you have other people who come in and like, no, my religion's right, and I'm going to force it on you, aka some Muslims. You're going to do the Sharia law, and that's when we start to have problems. Because if it's founded by Christian believers with Christian Judeo-Christian principles, then yeah, we're going to allow you to practice it. But the second you come in and tell me I've got to serve your God, now it fundamentally doesn't work. You see where I'm going with that? So am I off on that, or is that starting to kind of make a little bit of sense on the two different types of people who are trying to come here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of other, a lot of maybe some other faiths is that they want to force you. They want to change the culture. They don't like. I mean, they fundamentally don't like Christians. They don't want to coexist.
Then why come here?
Because they like the freedom. So a lot of people like the freedom. I think as even people look at the Constitution or look at it, like this guy said, it only says God 4 times. And he goes down and breaks all this down. But the thing is, you can't understand that or see that if you don't even know the Bible, if you don't know what Christianity is. Yeah. All of that's blind to you. So, I mean, not even like to the guy asking the question, he can't even see that.
You're right.
So it's like you can't even really hold that against him. It's like, I just see God, and okay, I know it's talking about God. But it's like, no, let me explain this all to you that you don't even understand, that you're not seeing. All of this comes from our scripture that you're blind to. The freedoms that you think that you have because you think people you think they were just moral and good. Like, no, this came from Christ himself. And this is the freedom that you walk in that you're ignorant to.
Yes, absolutely. And I think That last, I'm telling you, that last statement is fire. And it wasn't his statement. He was quoting, I believe he said John Adams. I believe he was saying, quoting John Adams. He's right. And this is the problem we have with politics today. We as firm believers, I'm not talking about fickle and fake believers, right? I'm talking as firm believers. This is the rub we have against, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, when they start to go against our Christian values. This is the rub we have. It's like, no, this America only works if you are following the way it was intended to be followed, right? The framework that happens, the directions, the instructions. And once you get outside of that, I don't care if you're an elephant or a donkey, it doesn't work. It does not work. If we don't have clear lines, on males and females, it won't work. If you don't, like you said the other day, people always say, well, Christianity is the reason for slavery. No, Christianity is the reason there is no slavery. I got to remind people, before Christianity, guess what there was? Slavery. During Christianity, what was there? Slavery. We think half those gladiators were fighting in the Colosseum were slaves. I mean, come on. There's a whole book. People don't even know this. There's a whole book called Philemon about a runaway slave who Paul says, don't make him a slave again. If you go back and read that book and you understand that book, Paul is putting on one of the biggest guilt trips you've ever seen. In one of those lines, hey, bro, you owe me your life. I mean, how much more can you say without saying it? Your very soul belongs to me. He's basically saying, don't bring him back as a slave, bring him back as a brother. I tell people all the time, listen, some things may have been done in the name of Christ, but it wasn't Christ who did it. Mm-hmm. And it's because of Christ and him giving divine revelation to certain men of God who received that revelation that slavery is gone.
It's funny but people won't allow that argument to be made about other religions.
I'm sorry, go ahead. What do you mean?
Oh
yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, the argument, what you said was, at least what I heard was, people will say, because things have been said in the name of Christianity, it gets a bad name, but in the reality, Christ wasn't in it at all.
Right.
But people will still blanket it.
Right.
But they'll give a pass to somebody who's a Muslim, and they blow up a bus in the name of Allah, but it's okay. That was just an isolated incident. They don't all believe it.
He had a rough day, right? But it's true. And correct me if I don't think I'm wrong, but I don't think there's ever been a people group who hasn't sold some of their own people in that group, and enslaved people in the group. I think it's as old as time. You know what I mean? But because of Christ and the message of the gospel, and because of what he's done for us, neither slave nor free, no Jew, no Gentile, right? Because of that message, men of God, women of God have gotten the burden to say, no, we're all free. We're all equal at the base of the cross. It's that scares people. That scares people because you can't live out the Etza Hara, the evil inclinations within your soul. Because God says and Christ says, no, that's not right. Mm-hmm. It goes against the very flesh and the fabric of everything that you want to do as a human. As a fallen human. And that's what I go all that to say this. I just wanted to highlight. I thought this was very disturbing. Okay? I thought this was very disturbing. And I want you guys to take a look at this post right here. I'm going to put it up. I'm going to give everybody just a couple seconds to read it, okay? But I want you to take a look at this. When I think of conventions and I think of trucks, is it me or I'm just thinking of like food trucks? Like I'm thinking of the churro truck. That's always a good truck. Taco truck. That's always a good truck. Aguas Fresca truck. My wife loves pretzels and corn dogs. How about a pretzel and corn dog truck? But at the DNC convention, you can't even get you some ice cream truck. You got you an abortion / vasectomy truck. What say you?
At the conventions, so on the floor, is it all people who are like representatives, and then like in the stands is just like normal folks?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense to me.
But it's constituents. It's people who are helping with the campaigns and all that.
People of color. Come abort your babies and make sure you can't have any more.
But yet, Black Lives Matter, Deshaun. I just want you to know, Black Lives Matter. But you can come, get a little vasectomy and you can get an abortion though.
Because this is healthcare.
Because this is healthcare and you deserve it. Just so you know, we care about you. What the heck is that?
Yeah, it's just like why? Like what? Why?
But that's my point.
Just scratch. Like I'm just. Like obviously we know. Like we know that you're down for abortion. Like we get it.
Yeah,
we get it. We know that you're down for the demolition of the nuclear family. Like we
know we don't want
we
men
get it.
So
yeah.
What did she cut off to Peter? What was it? No, what was it? What was the lady?
Oh, the nuggets or something.
Yeah,
like that,
get rid of the nuggets. No nuggets. No nuggets. We get it.
Yeah, but it's like what? Out of everything that you could bring to convention to celebrate the unity of the Democratic Party, we're gonna.
Whatever happened to we're gonna run a class on men who are really feeling overwhelmed about being a father in today's times.
They don't care about that.
How about a job fair for those who are struggling to make ends meet? You're gonna have to pick up a second job because the economy is so bad.
They're going to Chicago. They're good. They don't need any jobs there. They're good.
Well, all the job openings that they had, they gave them away to people who are coming from Venezuela.
They're going to Chicago, one of the worst areas they always complain about. And
but don't worry. Guess what? Three things. Can I give you this? Ready? They built a wall. You have to show a proof of ID to get into the convention. Okay, so they built a wall. You have to have a proof of ID to get into the convention. Hold on.
Racists.
And you have to be a voting member.
Bigots.
Hold on. But you're wanting to give away free IDs. Everybody can vote, and there's no wall. This doesn't make any sense. That's what they're so concerned about. But I'm just saying, out of all the things, what do you think they were thinking when they said, "Hey, I got a great idea for a truck"?
I think sometimes they just double down.
Yeah.
Is that a statement? That's just got to be a statement.
Yeah,
right?
I think there's double down.
I've never met a guy. I hang around with a lot of guys. I've never met a guy who says, "Hey, bro, do you know where the vasectomy truck is?"
Hey, you think it's over there on Thursday? I try by on Thursday every week, and it's gone. I don't know.
No, man. Thursdays are on Union and C Street. You know what I'm saying? Union and C on Thursdays. But don't worry, dog. They got you. Just go on in.
You got to get there before noon. The line is down the street, so you got to get there before noon.
Yo, dog, why you in line? Well, I'm in line because dude's in line. Yo, man, why you in line? Bro, you don't know why we in line? We like that. They don't even tell you what to do. Like that, bro. That's all they're doing.
They got the best vasectomy.
Bro, I'm telling you, bro. In and out, bro. In and out, 10 minutes. Give you a little pill, little shot, you gone. Have you ever met a guy? All the guys I talk to that talk about getting snipped, man, it's like, dog, I got to go in. Like, it ain't something on a win. I ain't never met a guy.
No, but they say it like this.
Yeah. This make sure nobody looking around.
I'm hoping.
Hey, yeah.
But this is between us.
Yeah, but I'm saying like I've talked to a lot of guys. I never met a guy who looked forward to, yo, man, I can't wait. The vasectomy truck's going to be there Thursday off C and 18th. This is going to be amazing. I can't wait. Man, I'm excited.
I honestly, I think it's just, I think that they wanted this to get out.
Okay.
Right. I think it's just a talking point for them. And they're just really doubling down on everything that you could label as a negative thing for Donald Trump. Like, then they're trying to do the opposite.
But am I wrong in saying we've got real problems right now? Real problems. Am I wrong in saying like I literally, my wife had to have surgery. Y'all know that. And I literally did, we on the way to the wedding, we had a little family meeting about the finances. And I said, hey, babe, next month or two, we're going to have to cut back. And she's like, what's up? I said, well, healthcare is out of hand. Like we just put out a lot of money for your surgery, like a lot of money, co-pays, prescriptions, stuff the insurance don't cover, XYZ, right? And I still got bills pouring in, and that's not to mention the number one thing. I don't know about wherever you're watching this, Alabama, Georgia. I don't know where you guys, Texas, where you guys watch that, Nevada. But in California, the number one thing everybody's complaining about is PG&E, is the electricity bill. Everybody's just saying, we got restaurants here saying, this is it. This is the last month. I had a $20,000 bill. We got real problems. But instead of attacking the real problems, I just want you to know you can go, you know what I mean? You can go get that done. instead of talking about real problems. I thought, man, we're almost empty nesters. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go home. I'm going to just buy 2 steaks on the way home, make me and mama a steak. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't got to cook for a lot of people now. We're going to eat good. I looked at the price of 2 steaks. I said, me and mama going on a diet. We're going to eat one.
You were talking about earlier, I don't know, last time I had chicken nuggets. Well, we about to try them pretty soon.
But instead of talking about real problems, this is what we're doing. So thinking about these things, and since we're on this subject, I came across this clip of a pastor, and I want to play it for you guys. I don't know what to think. Part of me is like, I see it. Part of me is like, I don't see it. Part of me is I understand. The other part of me is like, I don't understand. So I want to play this clip, and this is going along the lines of what we're talking about. If as believers we'd follow the Word of God, we'd follow the Bible, then things go well. When we deviate, then things don't go well. So I just want to play this clip, and I want to get some thoughts about this. Right? This is about going to church and about what type of priority church should be. Watch this clip.
According to the latest church statistics, the average church member, I'm not talking about the lame, lousy church member, I'm talking the average church member, listen to this, only attends the gatherings twice a month. Twice a month. So if you're taking a test, that's a 50. You just failed, right? Twice a month. And there are many factors that contribute to this. Some people have crazy work schedules, and we got first responders, and we got people that work at different factories around town. And I get that. Some of us, we travel on the weekends for various things, and we got travel sports on the weekends. I think some people it's just laziness, but that's a different message for a different time. But I know there are many contributing factors, which, let me show you my cards if I can, which is why back in August, we launched a Thursday night gathering. You see, our elders and our leaders got together. We said, okay, culture has obviously changed. Sunday is no longer the sacred day. It's just another day. And we can whine about it and complain about it and try to fight against it, or we can just beat culture at its own game. And so let's do that. Let's start a gathering on a weird day at a really weird time so that we can give people their weekends back and they can still be in church. So, man, you got to work on Sunday. Hey, thanks for taking care of us, cops and firefighters and nurses and doctors and we appreciate you. Thank you for what you do. People that are working at the factories, weird shifts, thank you for what you do. Oh, you got travel ball this weekend? Great, go have fun. Praying for you, hope you win. You want to go to the campsite okay, that's a Thursday night. Thursday night, we're gonna have some family members together in this room at 7:00, and you need to be there. And so show up. Why? Because the gathering is that important.
So, let me hear you guys' thought. That's why I'm all conflicted.
Seemed like there was some mixed messaging in there.
Go ahead.
Well, because he ends with really emphasizing that the gathering is that important. And mixed messaging in the sense of I've got one of my guys. He comes off his shift from PD and comes my first service here along with his buddy who's coming off of his shift as EMT. And usually I joke with them because they got one eye open and one eye closed because they literally just did 12 hours. Okay. And so I when he talks about first responders and people who work in factories who maybe they don't have control of their schedule and offering an alternative service for them, it makes me go, all right, I could dig it.
Right.
But then the mixed messaging comes when he's like, and you want to do travel ball and you want to take a boat out or go camp or whatever he said. It seemed like it swings to the opposite direction of what are you putting your priorities in? Huh. And so to me, I'm just wrestling through do I agree with what he's saying? Do I not agree with what he's saying? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. I think we all had the same response. I understand what you're saying, that people just sometimes you just can't make it work. The culture that we're in doesn't, certain jobs don't respect that day anymore like they did in the past. And so you want to make a way for other people, or for people to actually come to church. But to say that, hey, because we're going to go play baseball or we're just going to go camping, that's crazy. That day, you want to make that day important. This should be a day set aside.
Okay, so does this explain why I was all over the place on this video? I could see it, I can't see it, I understand.
No, he starts off good, it just keeps going downhill. Yeah,
he crashed plane, huh?
Yeah.
That was, but it was doing good.
Yeah,
it just fell out.
I mean, he gets you when he talks about really
doctors,
good reasons why you would miss. You're saving people's lives. We're going to give you an alternative. Who's going to say no to that?
Yeah, it started. Okay, so I want to show you, because I think we're all on the same page. I want to show you a church sign that somebody put. You know the old school signs like "Be here on Sunday." Okay, but look at this church sign. Look what it says. It says there is a 0.0296 chance that your child will become a professional athlete. There is a 100% chance that your child will stand before Jesus. Get them to church. Go ahead.
No, I've thought about this recently. You know, my kids are getting a little older, but then we also have a lot of interaction with collegiate athletes in our past, but then also like right now, and specifically like in the current season of our church at my campus, I have an influx of athletes who are Division I athletes, and they're all going to probably not be professionals in whether it be a year, 2 years, or 3 years.
We've actually had a lot. We've had a lot come through our church who've all been D1 athletes. And I'm trying to think, we've had a couple try out for the bigs. None of them have made it. And
the one with the best chance is probably sitting right there right now, and he may get there. But that's one out of a lot.
At least 100 right
and
now.
His window is probably very small.
Very small. What did you think about that sign right there?
I agree with it, but even if your kid is going to be a professional athlete, they're going to need Jesus.
Oh, man, come on.
Like they're going to have, say if they're going to be big, they're going to have the money, they're going to have the fame. Everyone's going to want a piece of them. Everyone's going to take advantage of them. Everyone's going to use them, never have access to whatever they want. They need Jesus. So I don't care if your kid is going to make it or not going to make it. They could need it. Actually, I might argue that the person that's going to make it needs it more than the other person.
What do you say? Well, okay, I have a question for you guys because you guys are sports guys, and you have a background in playing sports and coaching sports. Okay, so he had mentioned culture. The sports culture right now is that you do travel ball and that you do, year round for a season, and people play on Sundays and stuff like that. What do you say to the parent whose kid is being kind of like asked, and sometimes not even asked, but it's more of a demand that you play on Sunday, and so the tension that comes with wanting your son to be able, or daughter to continue to be able to play, but then also being on this team.
I remember my older brother. We lived sort of like same family, but different lives. My parents didn't have as much money back then when he was going, because he's my oldest brother. But I remember him telling me like he needed new shoes. My dad was gonna buy him new shoes. Well, he was like, "Well, I was good enough. They were buying me new shoes." Like the coach got him shoes. And I remember playing basketball. We went to a tournament, I think in San Diego, and it was two guys on our team who are Mormons. Their parents drove down there and made sure they didn't play. They couldn't play on a Sunday. They drove down for that specific reason, make sure they weren't playing. They didn't play around with it. Guess what? They were good enough. I mean, they played basketball, but they were all-star like football players. Both of them were amazing football players. But they make sure they had put that first. And I don't think that, Mormons are Christians. We need to have that same thing. If your kid's good enough, they're going to make it. If they're not, it doesn't matter. You instill that in your kids that this is important, because they're going to look back on that, and that's going to matter.
Because to an extent, what I think one argument would be made is that like it's out of our control as far as like practice times, game days, and things like that. And so how do we still put our kids and allow our kids to be involved in something that we're almost kind of not in control over?
It's never out of your control. So I remember coaching high school football, a very unique opportunity. This coach, his brother was coaching at a D1 school. Got to meet him, super nice guy, super cool. And his brother was coaching at a D1 school. Was like, hey, my brother tells me a lot about you. He's really high on you. He goes, someone of your caliber, if you wanted to keep climbing the coaching tree, here's your next steps. And long story short, it was a very edifying conversation. There was nothing wrong with it, but that price was a price I was never willing to pay. And I think you have to count that cost. Just because you have the goods doesn't mean you're supposed to pay the price. And I think certain people don't understand that. I will say this, I'm going to argue with myself. Having coached football, I have been fortunate enough to see and have had coached a couple of players that went to the NFL, and one of them had a very long career. Not a Pro Bowl career, but a long career. And that came at a high cost. And you're right. If they do make it to the league, they're going to need Jesus. Because you're giving a 21-year-old young man all the money he could spend with all the women he could ever want. This is a cocktail of disaster. And so I think you're right in that regards. I do want to say this, though. You got to understand, I've coached thousands of athletes. I've trained hundreds of athletes. And the physical genetics of this person was a freak. And that's the thing most parents don't understand. Oh, my kid's going to go. No, they're not. No, they're not. I've seen the pool that they're coming from right now. I see the genetic pool. Unless God does something incredible, they're not going. You don't understand. Like my coach used to tell me, you can't coach size. Either you got it or not. I don't care. He's got the heart of a lion. He's 5'5". It's not going to happen. Okay, it's just not going to happen.
Well, they're always hoping. You know, it's that 0.5% that do it. My son's gonna be that 0.5%,
and they're not.
It's gonna be the Tom Brady. Nothing to look at. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm saying that's what everyone's looking at. Tom Brady was nothing to look at.
He had a horrible combine.
Yeah, but or they want to say, or they will say, but I want to give them the opportunity to at least make it.
And it's not going to happen again. That's what I'm trying to help you with. I'm trying to help you. But this sign is right. And the problem happens is you spend all this money on travel ball and all this stuff when you could have just saved the money and paid for your kids' college. Because now you paid for all that. They didn't get the ride, or they got a partial ride. Now you got to pay for the other ride after you just paid for all that. And really, at the end of the day, what did get them? And then you wonder why and the parents will complain, well, my kids aren't doing well spiritually, because it was never a priority. So you got to balance this out. And now I'm going to argue with myself, so y'all just give me a little bit of grace here, okay? You know, this is the Not Offended podcast, so everybody's a target. We don't spare nobody. And pastors, by the way, can I just say this? They don't give us enough credit, but we go after pastors more than we go after anybody else. And I don't think nobody ever says anything. I think that's why a lot of pastors don't watch us. But that's beside the point.
Or churches don't let us do weddings at their church.
Or churches don't let us do weddings at their facilities. You got to find out about that. We gonna call them out. So anyway, simmer down though. Take it down a notch. We don't want you to get all
I already
emotional
had
on the
calmed
show.
down. I said the good message in the group text. I was calm, and
then I'm starting to poke at it now.
Yeah,
I'm pulling the scab.
That was my fault. It was my fault.
You set it up.
That's being a bad friend.
That's being a bad friend.
Signs of being a bad friend. You stoke a fire that's already dead.
You did. So here's the deal. I put this on the pastoring. I'm not sure. Do you know who Paul Washer is? I don't really know him. I've heard of him. I don't really watch any of his sermons or anything.
I've seen some clips.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I want to play you this clip because I think this is our problem, right? And going back to our original clip here, I understand the creative ability, the creativeness, and the ability to put a different service on a Thursday. I like it. I'm feeling that. But why you do it is what matters. And if you're just giving parents another reason to cop out of a Sunday service, I don't know about that. But if you're really trying to facilitate for nurses and doctors, everything you said, okay, I get it. But if we're just doing this for convenience, I ain't down. Okay. I said that, and I brought the pastor back up because I want you to see this clip right here by Paul Washer. And we're going to close with this. I want to get your thoughts.
What do you think the greatest threat is to the church in our generation?
It's pastors. Honestly. The pastors. Anywhere, God has given 3 offices, I believe, to the church: evangelist, pastor, and teacher. Wherever you see a weak church, you see these weak men. Either they're non-existent, they're unbiblical, or they're unconverted. And all this talk about the judgment on our country because of its immoralities and everything else, never forget, judgment always begins with the household of God. And I am astounded at the lack of the fear of the Lord and the lack of biblical knowledge among those who would call themselves the ministers of Christ. And I mean, the atrocities that have happened in America in evangelicalism, just in the pulpit itself, the tomfoolery, the lack of reverence, if you have a church that's not a praying church, it's because you have non-praying elders. The church is not biblical, it's because you have non-biblical elders. It always goes back to, so when I look at the nation, I'm not blaming some party or professors or this or that. I'm looking at myself as a minister of Christ. And that's a very solemn, that's why someone shouldn't enter into the ministry very lightly. And we could say all kinds of other things, but it all does come back to that. We could say liberalism, which is true. We could say even a greater, more dangerous thing that's a secret, hidden liberalism is when men affirm that the Bible is inerrant, but their whole ministry is nothing but pragmatism. All you young men need to understand something. All this talk about Reformation the last 15 years, the reformers didn't want to be reformers. They just wanted to be biblical, number one. Number two, you're not reformed simply because you've adopted an academic view of some sort of sovereign grace soteriology. You're following in the spirit of the reformers because you're trying to take every aspect of your thought, your doctrine, your disposition, your life, your family, your church, and submitting it to what is written. And so those are some of the things.
Yeah, I like that. Greatest threat to the church right now is pastors. And he said unconverted. That's scary to think that there might be some pastors in a pulpit that are unconverted. Or do you think he's just right?
I mean, what I take away from that is I need to be a better pastor. I just got to be a better pastor. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, that's what you talk about pastors and you point stuff out, and it was like, that's the problem. I don't know, at least for me, it's like, okay, look at yourself. Like, not to say I agree with the stuff he's saying, but it's like, okay.
What did you not? I didn't find myself disagreeing with one thing, and that's just because he's a Calvinist and I'm a charismatic. I believe there's 5 in the office, not 3. Apostle, he missed apostle, prophet, but I tell you this, I respect him so much, I wouldn't argue with him because I could care less.
I don't know, maybe I heard that differently. I thought he meant like offices like inside the church on a regular basis, like working inside the...
Well, I think you should have apostolic eldership working. But I'm saying it's not enough to where I would argue with the guy, but I'm saying I didn't want to say I wholeheartedly agree with everything he said. That would be the only thing I disagree with. But I even think if we sat down and talked, it'd probably be a slight disagreement. He's spot on, though. If you ain't having the church pray, you need to step up your prayer life. You need to have your elders stepping up your prayer life, et cetera, et cetera. If you're not being, talking about God's holiness, then they're not going to talk about God. That is spot on. And I think, so going back to the previous clip, the problem is the pastor. We don't put the emphasis. We don't put it out there. You don't think I was nervous to talk about it? I basically, and I don't mean this as a knock, but just as a point of reference, okay? So I don't want nobody putting it in the notes or putting it in the comments. I'm not knocking. This was the anti-Joel Osteen message yesterday. This was the opposite of a Mike Todd sermon yesterday, where I'm literally saying, hey, y'all going to suffer. It's going to be okay. And it's still part of God's plan. That's not a feel-good sermon. And you don't think I wanted to preach something different? You don't think that I was like, man, I really don't want to I really don't want to do all that. Come on. Can't we talk about the kickoff season? Can't we talk about something? But it's right, though. We have a duty and an obligation as pastor. I like what he said. Do not enter into ministry lightly.
Yeah, it's convicting as far as just kind of like my own personal walk and my role and what I do and who I am. So on the personal side, it's convicting. And then on the other side, we've talked about it plenty of times where, we see kind of failures in our community, Christian community, and then community abroad as, just even locally where it's, where's the church? It's like the buildings are there, but why are people not standing up? Why are people not agreeing? Why are people not making a big deal when you have somebody who's in a political position here in town who claims to be a believer and is running our city into the ground, right, as a fake believer? And so why is nobody saying anything? And a lot of times it goes back to the pulpit's quiet.
I wanted to just talk to the people who tune in, and from time to time, I will get the question, how do I know I'm at the right church? How do I know I'm underneath the right pastor? How do I know what I'm being taught, basically, right? Because they're supposed to teach the Bible, show them the way to be a disciple. How do I know that all this is good? And how do I know I'm in a healthy church? And I thought what we would end with today, and man, there is a conviction to what he said, though. You can't lie. Made me think about, like, man, my prayer life been slacking a little bit. I need to step my game up. You know, because I mean, to be honest, I'm very consistent in reading my Bible. And I'm not talking about praying, you know, when you walk in your prayer works. I'm talking about getting to a quiet place where God knows he's got your attention for a solid 30. That type of prayer, intercessory prayer, you know, petitioning, you know, where you're not distracted by 3 other things type of prayer. So that was convicting. But let's help people just with that in mind. If you guys want, you could talk to people or other pastors who watch this. You could talk to whoever you want. Just let us know who you're talking to, right? And let's give them some encouragement how to know they're in a healthy church, okay? And if it's a pastor, maybe tell them how to get healthy. But Bishop, since we're maybe talking to pastors, we're gonna go to you first. So just let us know who you're talking to. But what's a sign of a healthy church, or how can we get healthy? I'll give you either or. I'm gonna throw the softball here so you can hit this one out the park. Right? How to get healthy, or a sign that you are in a healthy church. Go ahead.
Yeah, we talked about suffering earlier, and how times you're just gonna go through stuff, and it could be long periods of time. Just people who suffer for a long period physically. And I think it's important that if you can find community, people at your church to do life with, you need someone there to encourage you. Paul, what he kept saying, and when he was writing to them in Thessalonians chapter 3, it's like, I long to be with you because I want to be there to encourage you because you're going through a hard time. I just can't get back. So I'm going to sacrifice and I'm going to send Timothy to you because I need someone to be there to encourage you guys. Because obviously, he thought it was that important that you see him going over again. I'm gonna let him go. I'm gonna let him go. Obviously, he needed Timothy, but it was like I need someone to be there who is able to encourage you. And I think that's important for all of us, that we need people in our lives who are there to encourage you. If we can't find someone at their church, are you doing your part first? Then if there's people who aren't there, then maybe you need to pray about, okay, do I need to go to another church so I can have people around me who are there to encourage me in my walk?
That's a good word. What you got? What you got?
Yeah, I'll just keep going off of his. How about that? Okay. This is for the believer. Sometimes we're looking for the church that's perfect for us, but yet we don't do anything.
Oh, okay.
And so we're looking for community, but we don't reach out. I remember being the last one there and the first one to leave when I started going to church, and nothing in my life changed. And my life changed when I really allowed myself to be in community. And that took a step of faith for me. But that was when everything really started to move in my life. And so I think the encouraging thing that I would say is, you won't know if there are people who are out there unless you first make that move and you first take the step. And then you'll know, hey, this church does have community. I could be here, or this church doesn't have the community. But none of that is going to be found out if you're just always expecting other people to do things. How come nobody's coming to talk to me? How come nobody's showing me this? How come it's me? No, at some point you got to move. You've got to move. And so I think part of finding a healthy church is that you have to kind of put yourself out there to see, is this going to work? It's like dating. You know what I mean? Is this going to work out? Well, we're never going to know unless you do something.
I think both of you had some great answers. Thank you so much for contributing. I want to talk to the pastors, okay? And to those who aspire to be pastors, or those who are pastors in training. Jesus gave us the ultimate responsibility. He gave us the keys to the kingdom, in the sense he left us in charge to captain the greatest ship that brings the hope of the world. He partners with us to do what is almost dang near impossible, which is bring hope to a dying and hopeless humanity. And he has so chosen to partner with us that I'm honored. I'm obliged. I can't believe it. I'm at days, I'm just in still awe that this is what God has asked me to do. But with that comes a great responsibility. And I want to talk to you, pastor, out there right now. You may be feeling discouraged. Then call up some other pastors and start a gathering every Monday, every Tuesday, just for 30 minutes to encourage each other. Or pastor, you may be feeling like you don't got what it takes. You're feeling overwhelmed, like this thing is too big. Like you don't know how to lead people into discipleship or fruitfulness in ministry, or you just may be feeling ill-equipped. Then reach out, join some of these organizations out there that give you best practices and help you to expand your bandwidth. Or pastor, you might be out there and you might feel like it's time to give up. I don't know if I'm called anymore. I would just ask you to consider to pray through that. I would really ask you, if God has called you, then he is more than able to finish the work he has started in you. Now, what I am saying is God's got a plan, but what I'm not saying is you're supposed to be the lead pastor. I don't know that answer. I'd have to talk with you. I'd have to gather with you. I'd have to meet with you. But you may be out of pocket in the position you're in right now. You just might be an assisting pastor, not a lead pastor. But we could talk about that at another time. I just want to encourage you in all that you're doing. Keep going. Now, to that pastor out there, you might be dealing with a sin. And you might be saying, man, if I come forward with it, I feel like no one's going to understand. You need to find you a community of other pastors in whom you can bear your soul. Remember this, you're only as sick as your secrets. I got that from Pastor Chris Hodges. I'll never forget it. You're only as sick as your secrets. So don't stay sick any longer. Find somebody who you can confide in, get the help you need, and let's bring the hope of the world, and that is the gospel of Christ. Pastors, I believe in you. I do everything I do because I love pastors so much, but I'm telling you right now, if we're going to see the change, I agree with this brother. It ain't going to be by a political party. It's going to be when the pastors get it right and start preaching from the pulpit how wonderful God is and how he has a plan for your life. So let's do ourselves a favor. Let's get it right so that we can see America turn around and we can see revival come to our lands. This has been the Not Offended Podcast. Peace, and we're out.
Yeah.